story coming up.
The federal funding freeze is already affecting San Diego, and county leaders fear it's going to get a lot worse.
New details as we're learning U.S. Coast Guard planes in San Diego are helping in migrant deportations.
Governor Newsom says if counties want money to address homelessness, they need to be held accountable. I'm Shanna Handy with the details on a new tool to do just that coming up.
God wasn't ready for him, so Ferris Davidson has thrown himself a James Bond birthday bash.
CBS 8 News live at 6 starts right now.
As we come on the air tonight, the search continues for a woman accused of stabbing and killing her wife, a CAL FIRE captain, exactly 1 week ago tonight in Ramona. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Carlo Cicchetto.
I'm Marcella Lee. We are learning more today about a fundraiser being set up by CAL FIRE to help her family financially. CBS 8's Alex Cheney spoke to the director of the CAL FIRE Benevolent Fund and joins us with more on how they're helping the Marodi family. Alex?
Marcella and Carlo, right now the San Diego County Sheriff's Office thinks that Yolanda could be in Mexico, has fled out of the country. This while the CAL FIRE is doing what they can to raise money for the Marodi family. The San Diego Sheriff's Office still believes that 54-year-old Yolanda Marodi fatally stabbed her spouse of 2 years, CAL FIRE Captain Rebecca Marodi, last Monday night. Sheriffs say the suspect is believed to be traveling with a small white dog and is driving a 2013 Chevrolet Equinox. As the search continues, CAL FIRE San Diego is stepping up to help the Marodi family financially by opening a CAL FIRE Benevolent Fund in her name. Similar to a GoFundMe, people can go online to donate through the official CAL FIRE portal. Marodi was the primary caregiver for her 77-year-old mother who lived with her in Ramona. Her sudden passing has left the family with financial uncertainty.
She was the sole caregiver for her mother, who now is, falling some hard times due to no longer having a caregiver. So we're there to help support her in whatever any way she needs.
The Benevolent Fund will ensure that her mother can continue living in the home Rebecca provided for her and help the family cover funeral expenses.
There's just a few different gaps that the Benevolent Fund is able to close those gaps on where the department and the local can't expend funds, and then also help in direct support to the families that need assistance.
For more information about how you can donate to the CAL FIRE Benevolent Fund, you can go to our website, cbs8.com. The link to that fund is posted on our website. Reporting live in Kearny Mesa, I'm Alex Cheney, CBS 8.
Thank you, Alex. Tonight we're learning the identity of the man who was shot and killed at Kunkel Park in Lemon Grove yesterday afternoon. He's been identified as 51-year-old Anthony Trujillo. According to the sheriff's office, Trujillo was found lying next to a park bench. He was shot in the neck and later died at the hospital. The gunman is still on the loose. Authorities believe the victim and gunman knew each other. If you know anything about the shooting, you're asked to contact San Diego Crime Stoppers.
San Diegans are voicing their concerns over potential federal cuts to health care and food assistance. Alliance San Diego claims these cuts could impact more than 500,000 San Diegans who depend on Medicaid, SNAP, and ACA health care. President Trump maintains cuts will eliminate waste and fraud. Organizers say 29% of Republican Congressman Darrell Issa's constituents rely on Medicaid for health care, and they have this message for him.
I ask you to please consider the more than 100,000 people in your district who are taking advantage of the safety net programs in order to care for their families at every stage of life.
In a statement, a spokesperson for Congressman Issa says it's irresponsible to, quote, misrepresent Republicans pledging to strengthen Medicaid by ridding it of billions in waste, fraud, and abuse everyone knows is dragging down the program. San Diegans know we can make Medicaid better for everyone who needs it. While those federal financial cuts are still in the planning stages, others have already happened and are affecting San Diegans. Today,
County Supervisor Tara Lawson-Remer talked to reporters about the cuts and her fears moving forward. CBS 8's Steve Price joins us live from County Health and Human Services with those details. Steve.
Carlo and Marcella, no county agency will feel the effects of federal cuts more than this one. Health and Human Services is expected to get around $1.2 billion this fiscal year from the federal government. But county leaders make it clear that's not Washington's money, that's your money. More San Diegans living on our streets. County leaders say it's happening because of President Trump's federal funding freeze, and they fear things are about to get a lot worse.
These funds keep emergency shelters open, help struggling renters stay in their homes, and also finance affordable housing developments to give low-income families, seniors, and veterans permanent homes.
And County Supervisor Tara Lawson-Remer says it doesn't end there. From tracking pollution in the Tijuana River Valley to freezing disaster relief grants, all of it stopped immediately, including important communication with the CDC.
The CDC has ordered a communication stoppage with the county on key public health initiatives, including the tracking of disease outbreaks and the coordination of emergency response.
San Diego County's annual budget relies on over $1 billion of federal funds, but Lawson-Remer is quick to point out it's our money.
These are not handouts from Washington. Local San Diegans pay billions of dollars in federal taxes every single year, and that money is meant to come back to our community to fund essential services.
Lawson-Remer also fears cuts to food assistance programs are next, and she's not alone.
It's a lot of money.
Alondra Alvarado, CEO of the San Diego Hunger Coalition, says the county gets around $68 million a year in federal food benefits, money that's spent at farmers markets and grocery stores, so losing that money will cost San Diegans jobs.
It will definitely affect all of us. It's a lot of money that's coming through to our county, and I agree with the supervisor. Like, it's money that we are paying, and it's already there, and it's money that our families should be receiving.
Alvarado says more than 820,000 San Diegans already can't afford 3 meals a day, and many of them are children and seniors. And other proposed cuts include up to $30 million in housing vouchers, which would also affect kids and seniors, and $80 million in transportation funding. Marcella?
Thanks so much, Steve. Governor Newsom has unveiled a new accountability tool to monitor how state funding to fight homelessness is being spent by cities and if it is being spent correctly. CBS 8's Shannon Handy will explain how it works ahead in our next half hour.
U.S. Coast Guard planes in San Diego are now transporting immigrants to fulfill President Trump's promise of mass deportations.
CBS 8's David Godfredson has been tracking deportation flights and talked with a former acting director of ICE about the use of Coast Guard assets to transport migrants across the country.
These are the C-130 planes the Coast Guard is using to transport migrants back and forth from Texas to California under orders from the Trump administration. We saw them Monday at the Naval Air Station, North Island. The Coast Guard has been transporting migrants since late January and handing them off to the Air Force to conduct international deportation flights. Some of the Air Force C-17 jets have been taking off from MCAS Miramar.
This administration has really called for an unprecedented use of military assets to include the Coast Guard.
John Sandweg is the former acting director of ICE under the Obama administration. He questions the use of military assets when border crossings and deportations still remain relatively low.
You don't need to use it right now, given the numbers we have. But I do think that a lot of this is optics. I think a lot of this is a desire by agency heads, too, to get in the game, so to speak, given that this has become such a priority within the administration.
Sandweg says the Coast Guard does play a role in immigration enforcement, but typically at sea.
Coast Guard does have border security as part of its mission, especially in an AOR, in a sector like San Diego, where you have Tonga boats, as you know, coming up from Mexico up the coast and landing all the way up past North County in San Diego. But of course, this mission is radically different. I mean, this is really a stretch for the Coast Guard to be running air transport, picking up migrants in Texas and flying them to the stage them for military deportation flights.
He points out ICE already has a $1 billion budget to pay a private contractor to transport immigrants. And when the Coast Guard gets involved, those flights come out of the agency's existing budget.
So when you start telling the FBI you're now getting in the immigration game, when you start telling the ATF, when you start telling the Coast Guard you're now going to be doing military transport flights, those are funds that were dedicated to some other purpose.
The Coast Guard falls under the Department of Homeland Security, not the Department of Defense. President Trump fired the head of the Coast Guard shortly after his inauguration. On Shelter Island, David Gottfredson, CBS 8.
Thank you, David. And we asked the Coast Guard to provide statistics about the number of flights and the number of migrants it has transported from San Diego. The agency spokesperson did not respond to our email.
Demolition is now complete at the Oceanside Pier after a fire back in April 2024 burned some buildings and part of the deck. Oceanside city officials say demolition went over schedule and over budget, and that's because the pier's materials were harder to knock down than expected. Work started in November of last year. Costs so far are near $2 million, and that price tag will rise as repairs continue. Next, city officials say engineers will evaluate the pier's structural damage. Repairs are set to begin in 2027, a whole couple years away if there is money available. Right now, the city of San Diego is hosting the first of 10 community meetings on newly proposed trash and recycling service fees.
Homeowners could soon pay up to $53 a month for a service that's been free in the city for more than a century. Voters approved the change in 2022. The city says it is losing money, spending $82 million on trash service. The issue will head to City Council for a final vote in June. Tonight's meeting is at the Otay Mesa Nestor Library. Next week's meeting will be at the Rancho Penasquitos Library. The big names in music announcing tour dates here in San Diego, that's still ahead.
Plus the rental scam that's on the rise near recent wildfire disaster zones.
And Joann Fabric says it's closing all of its U.S. stores. We'll tell you how many San Diego locations are impacted.
High pressure brought more warmer than usual temperatures across the entire county. Now we're feeling a little bit of that heat today. You had 80s inland for Ramona as well as for Borrego Springs, and you had 71 for downtown. Cooler temperatures and even a chance for wet weather rise over the weekend. Those details are ahead.